What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter. My name is Verno, here with Mr. Hank Hillhouse to talk about episode 6 through 10 of The Haunting of Hill House by Mike Flanagan. We did obviously the first half last week, so if you didn't check that out, please go do that before you watch this one, or if you don't want to, I don't care either way. Or the other thing I was going to mention right off the rip here is we also covered Mike Flanagan's second film, Oculus, a few days ago. I did with my other buddies, and that movie, if you've only seen The Haunting of Hill House and you've never seen any of Flanagan's films, or specifically Oculus, and you're a big fan of this series, you have to check out Oculus. I was just telling Peter, I just kind of told you a little bit backstage. So basically, everything that he does in this series, where you have your nonlinear storytelling, you've got these scary parents from the past that you don't know if it's a mental health thing or if one of the parents was crazy and killed some people. And so much of it is about, like, is this trauma or is there something supernatural? And the whole family dynamics, like so much of Hill House, is in Oculus, and it's fun. It's like a really good movie. I think it'd be right up your alley, honestly, Peter, as far as
Yeah,
what you're into as far as horror goes. I think you'd dig it.
seems like I fall into that category of I've only seen Hill House, so Oculus
Yeah.
would be right up my alley.
Hell yeah. Well, welcome back to the show, my brother.
Thank
How
you, thank you.
did you enjoy? This is your third time now
Third time
watching
watching it, and it's been a
episodes 6
while.
through
I kind of
10.
forgot the ending a bit.
Oh, yeah, me too. Oh, it'd been
I forgot
forever
a
for
lot of
me.
key parts of the ending. Yeah, which
I'll
we'll
just
we'll
say
get into.
the way we did it last week is the same way we're going to do it this week. We're going to go through very briefly each episode 6 through 10, and we'll rate each one individually and give our final thoughts on it at the end. But one thing I was curious about, I just had the way I remembered it. I remembered thinking, like, oh man, what an amazing series, and it kind of dipped off towards the end. I don't completely agree with the way I viewed it the first time, but we'll get into it. I think there's bits of it where it's like it's almost it. The show peaks. Tell me if you would agree. The show peaks at the reveal of the bent neck lady. It never reaches that height again, in my opinion. That's the only thing that makes it feel like there's. It's kind of not downhill from there, but it peaks at that moment.
Yeah, I don't want to disagree. I was talking to someone about this, about like a reason I do like that they introduced the identity of the bent neck lady halfway through
Mm-hmm.
is that the next time you see her, it's like it hurts.
Yeah.
It's sad to be like, it's no longer scary. It's now sad knowing it's Nell. But I don't. There's still like so many great moments and episodes I forgot in the last half.
Me too.
So I
Me
don't. I
too.
wouldn't. I don't know if I could say it peaked, but
I
Bent
almost
Neck
feel
Lady is one of the top moments of the show.
for sure. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, I'll say it's my like I made a little list, and it is probably my favorite moment. I mean, it is for sure. It's one of my favorite moments in television history. And I was just to clarify something I said last week, talking about how, like, oh, this is one of the greatest television shows of all time. And I do think it is, but it's a limited series. It's only 10 episodes. They didn't have 7 seasons to fuck it up and tarnish our memory and our, the way we feel about the series afterwards. So it's not The Sopranos, it's not Seinfeld even, or things like that. But as far as a limited series, and as far as like what I can think of horror TV, it's the best that I can think of that I've ever seen.
Yeah. I think it falls into this kind of semi-new category of television, which is the miniseries, the limited series.
Right.
And like just that they've been getting so good, and it's because they have that advantage of like we don't need to keep the story going. And I this is kind of one of my favorites because it's like all the different Mike Flanagan stuff. It's the same actor, so it feels like
Mhm.
different seasons, or even though it's different shows.
Right.
So you kind of get the best of both worlds with it.
I feel like I'm going to repeat myself, something I said during the Oculus show, but I wanted to say this to you. I feel like I figured out why Mike Flanagan does his casting the way that he does. Originally, I'm like, oh, he saw American Horror Story. He's like, oh, I want to use all the same actors and put them in different roles. But now that I'm like, oh, he is married to Kate Siegel. Theodore in this show is his wife. And I'm like, this clever bastard found a way to put his wife in everything he does without people making a big deal out of it. Like, oh, it's just one of the Flanagan actors.
Yeah.
He reuses everybody.
She's very talented.
Mhm.
She's usually
100%.
a main role in every project of his. And yeah, it's just like some extra income for the household. Not too bad.
Right. And I think they're smart. Like I said before, she's not Kate Flanagan. She's Kate Siegel. So it's a little bit more under the radar. You got to do a little Googling if you want to find that information out. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it, man. I think and right off the bat, I'm going to kind of contradict myself because I do think this episode 6, Two Storms, is one of the best, if not the best episode. I might like this episode better than I liked the Bet Neck Lady episode, which was the previous one. But I don't know if it has that moment as far as like the best moment of the series. Bet Neck reveals got that, but this one's incredible. When it's
This
more,
is more overall a crazy good episode when the bent
yeah,
neck lady is like that one moment,
totally.
excuse me, of oh, she's got me, the bent neck lady. The bent neck lady is more that one moment of like, holy fucking shit. Like that's
Right,
crazy.
right. I agree. Quick what up to Rogue and Mr. E for popping in early going. Appreciate you guys. The other thing I was going to say about this one, basically what we get, it's called Two Storms. So we're going back and forth, present to past. There's a storm in each of them. And in the current timeline, it's the night before Nell's funeral. And we've got the family kind of hanging out and drinking before the funeral the next day. And what it's really known for is these long takes. In my memory, it was like, oh, the whole episode, I think, is in one take. It's not that at all. There's just large chunks of it that are all done in one take. And it's also the introduction to the older actor that plays I think is Timothy
You?
Hutton. Yeah, that plays Hugh. I had his name, but then I lost it. Of course, I'll look Timothy. Yeah, Timothy Hutton. And before I ask you about that, how do you think that was? Because he's like the new actor that we get playing a role.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I looked into it. He's only 17 years older than the guy that was playing him before, whose name I forget. He's the guy that played Elliot in E.T. Do you know his name off the top of your head?
He played Elliot in E.T.
Yeah, yeah. I'll look his name up in a second. Henry
Whoa.
Thomas. Henry Thomas is the little kid. He's the lead from E.T.
Wow.
Isn't that
That's
crazy?
crazy. Yeah.
He's
Good for
great in
him.
this, by the way, too.
He
He
is
gets
so
to
good in
really
this.
shine in the second half. And I
Yeah.
think something about his eyes, like he can just look like America's Dad in one second, but he can also look demented as fuck.
He goes like almost full shining in the second half of this
Yeah.
season.
What did
Uh,
you think of the guy that comes in and plays him, Timothy Hutton? Because it was a bit of a disconnect for me because he's not as old as I feel like he should be.
hmm.
But at the same time, that was one of my complaints the first time watching it. This time, I'm like, I don't know if the other guy could have pulled off this sad sack that this character becomes. And I think he's probably just a better fit for the role. And I think he's great, but it is a bit of a disconnect for me.
It was ever a disconnect for me. I thought he was great. It certainly shows like what he's been through in between these two eras and
Mm-hmm.
like how much less energy he has. He's much more calm and aged, looked visually aged a lot.
Right. He's
Yeah.
a little bit more less self-assured and just more of a depressing guy when the way that he's played originally, he's a really upbeat, happy, joyous guy, which I like that flashback that we get in one of the later ones where it shows the family entering the house. And that's when you really see like what a just how excited he is for the future at that moment.
Yeah,
Nine
that was
Battle Grid says,
yeah.
dude really needed ET's powers to heal that fan injury. Yes, I agree, which is another great moment.
Yeah,
But okay,
crazy
if I
twist.
can wrap up my synopsis for the Two Storms one, episode
Please.
6, and then in the past we have a storm going on at Hill House, a bunch of crazy shit going on. But my biggest like takeaway from that is that Nell is lost. We find out at the end of the episode she's been there the whole time. She's just like invisible, so she's been screaming for everybody to see her, and everyone's been searching the house looking for her until we get the reveal at the end that she's been there the whole time. The way they tie that in with her in the present day and her in the past. But what did you think of this episode overall, dude?
I I think it's my favorite episode. Just the long takes I'm a sucker for, and they
Mhm,
did them so well. It was like watching a play almost, and cutting between the two timelines, but keeping that theme was like just really caught my attention the entire time. The Nell being like there the whole
mhm,
time, is that I don't know if they ever answer it. Like, is that like the
mhm.
house like hid her, or
I
like
don't know.
Nell's powers did that and she didn't mean to?
Dude, I don't know. I was hoping you had the answer for that. I was like, "Oh, does that tie in with her being dead? Are we gonna see at some point later on, like, oh, this is where she was during this time period?" And we never get that, right?
Yeah. I would guess it's the house
Mhm.
just, like, starting to, like, poke at them and, like, drive them more and more crazy.
Right. Right, because that's what
Maybe?
it's doing, is just kinda
Yeah.
screwing with them. I don't know, I really don't know. And that's another thing that we basically learn as this set of episodes goes on, is that the house is hungry, right? And it's feeding off of these kids and these families. And spoiler alert, tiny spoiler alert for Oculus, it's the same fucking thing. There's a magic mirror, and you find out that's what it's doing. It's feeding off, like, it eats the dog and the family, and it's killing plants, and it's like, it's the exact same idea, but instead of a mirror, this is the whole house. But I was captivated by the whole thing, man. I guess they built that set like it at one point. Hugh, he walks out of the funeral home and then he
Mhm.
walks into Hill House. And I remember hearing at one point that they planned this before they even started filming, and they built the set so that it actually works that way. You do walk right from the funeral parlor into Hill House, and that was a fucking awesome effect.
Yeah, it always seemed like they didn't just find Hill House, it had to be, like, specially built for all the fuckery and trickery that happens, especially that spiral staircase. I
Right,
think it's just
right.
a really a death trap.
The camera work in this one, obviously, in order to
Yeah.
keep the way they choreograph everything, they've got actors coming in and out of the camera's moving around everywhere. I thought it was cool watching when it's showing them in the past and the kids would be off screen and then come back. I'm just imagining, like, okay, they're pulling the kids off and they're telling them,
Yeah.
they're coaching them along, like, don't fuck this up. But it was interesting the way that they were just, I was noticing, like, oh, they're
Yeah.
getting people off camera and on
And they
to
did
not
some
screw it
long
up.
takes. I think that first one is like I clocked it at like 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
So impressive. And they must have practiced that so much. And it's another one episode that really makes me appreciate Shirley, who I want to look up that actress's name. Shirley is played by, oh, why can't you be right there on the first page? Elizabeth Reeser. And I think she's become not necessarily my favorite character, but as far as a performer and like an actress, she's so incredible. Like the way
Yeah.
she's able to put across, like you just picture her and she like feels you really believe that she's feeling the way she's feeling.
She feels the most real out of that family, which not to
Right.
disparage anyone else, like everyone's great, but she really feels just like true to her role in the family.
Right. I had it written down here. Just the other thing I wanted to mention, the moment in this episode that kind of had me choking up is Hugh talking about Nell's letters to Santa.
Mhm.
Like when she was a kid, she never wished for presents or she never asked for presents for herself, just for her brothers and sisters. And then as an adult, she would keep in contact with the dad. She seems to be like the only one that did. And all she would do is talk about the achievements of her brothers and sisters. There was something about that that was like so goddamn touching, sitting at her
Yeah.
funeral.
She really like more, as more and more of the show goes on, you learn like Nell kind of was the heart and soul of the family, or at least
Mhm.
like kept it alive, tried to keep it alive the most out of all the siblings when they're older.
Did you have any issue that they didn't just stick to it? Do you think they should have tried to not necessarily shoot the whole thing in one shot? But with today's modern technology, maybe they could have at least made it seem like it was shot all in one shot. And there's bits of it I'm like, okay, I guess I understand why they're not doing it. But then like towards the end when Nell's casket like falls over, I think it's then they start just cutting left and right. They completely abandon the idea in the last 5 minutes. And there was a couple points I'm like, why not just do all this in one take too?
I think because the tone changes at that point. Like it's all
Yeah.
long, drawn out, like slow burn stuff. And then as soon as that casket falls, that's at the height of, excuse me,
Hmm.
the dad and Steve like arguing and like yelling at each other. And then that's when you see the footprints and then you see the mom. It like it gets I think it just what they wanted to do was more
Right.
required more than they could with one
Instead of
like
just
take.
sticking to the gimmick, they went to go, yeah, to
Yeah, they're like, okay,
use the
now
tools that they had.
we're now exiting out of this performance and back to a regular scheduled programming.
Right. Well, that I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that's another thing that just I really liked about the episode. There's all these storylines boiling under the surface the whole time. And like in this night is really where everything kind of boils up. You get a lot of arguments coming out, a lot of things that have been like held down for years and not spoke about. They're talking about it in this episode, which was cool. And like the way that it is, when it all boils to a head, that's when Nell's casket just falls over.
Yeah.
And that's a freaky ass moment.
It's kind of like that scene in the Avengers when they're all arguing around Loki's scepter. And then it's like the camera like is always like pinpointing itself around the scepter, and you're like, oh, it's kind of causing tensions to rise in this room.
Right.
They kind of do the same with Nell's casket. Like it's always in the background. One, to be like, your eye keeps going there to be like, is something going to move out of there?
Right.
Which it never does. And then two, I think just to remind you of like, this is slowly causing tensions to rise.
Right. Speaking of rising tensions, we'll just point it out. Now then we get the other big thing that kind of has repercussions through the rest of the episodes is Theo and Kevin kissing when the lights go out.
I don't think they ever actually kiss.
Right. Don't they? They at least, well, she touches him somewhere that makes her feel things again. Is it not with her lips?
She puts her hands on his face and is like really close, and he says like, "Oh, whoa, whoa," and then he looks and there's Shirley. I was like, at this point, I was very much like, I wanted to make sure I remembered it because I for some reason remembered them retelling it. Like I think Kate Siegel's performance of retelling it is so good in that later episode that I kind of misremembered that they don't film it from like her point of view.
Right.
That moment in the closet.
It's kind I had a similar moment, and fuck it, we'll get into spoilers for this whole thing, obviously. That I don't want to forget about it now, but I completely thought that Luke ends up dying. I had this memory that Luke is dead by the end of this thing, and I remember not liking it. So they tricked me again when I watched. I'm like, oh shit, okay, you bastards, you really got me.
They tricked me too, because it's like the mom has the vision of adult Nell and adult Luke dead in the same way as they are. Like Nell's got the bent neck and Luke's on the floor with like bloody vomit out of his mouth. And it's kind of like, I guess in for what I think of is Doctor Who rules of like, well, you saw the future, that's gonna happen now.
Right.
And Nell's already dead. So like, and then Luke dies early in the last episode, or I guess seems to die.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, wow, that's how they're doing it.
Right, well, let's squeeze in another Avengers reference then. It's like an Age of Ultron when Tony touches the scepter and he sees everybody dead with the cracked shield, but it doesn't come true. So it's more like that.
Yeah. Well, also Luke doesn't die. Nell brings him back. Ghost Nell brings him back.
Right. Which is so fucking good. All right, so let us then go ahead and rate this one. I have a strong feeling that I know what your rating will be for two.
Yeah, I don't even need to look it up, but I'm still gonna. I put down a 5 out of 5. Episode 6.
I'm right there with you, man. I think it's one of the best episodes. It might be the best episode of the series for sure. So moving on to episode 7, titled Eulogy. This one, basically what we have going on in this one, in the past, Hugh's being interrogated by this cop with this strange, mysterious, we're finding out obviously that the mom's dead and that the kids are off at this hotel, and he's being interrogated the whole episode. And then in the past timeline, there's water that we think is originating from the Red Room. It's leaking down to the basement. So we've got Dad and Steve working on that in the basement with this black mold. We end up finding these bones. This dude he sealed himself in there. It's like Mr. Hill. I'll be honest with you. I lose track of like all these ghosts and all these past characters a little bit. But I think as one of the guys that used to own the house, he sealed himself down there like 100 years ago or 80 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
there's a large Hill family that like they just keep mentioning different ones who died, and you're like, I don't have a face to see, but I guess that's add another one to the pile of dead hills.
Yeah, another one to the hill of dead hills.
The guy behind the wall, we've seen his ghost. He's the tall guy with the hat and the cane.
Okay.
Because he has the cane in the behind the wall.
All right. Well, what did you think of this one, my brother?
This one was like good, but like, following that amazing episode 6.
Right.
It does have the introduction of the black mold is great for me because like it's like they're like, oh, now we're getting towards the end game. Like, you know, watching the show multiple times, you know what the black mold means. And so like it's now things are starting to get crazier. Hugh is starting to get like more unhinged and stressed out.
So is the mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oh my god, well, yeah, the mom is really going. Yeah, this is where we see her map, right?
Yeah, which is kind of cool because
Her blueprint.
I'm gonna probably be annoying and bring up Oculus a lot again, and I brought up Hill House when we talked about Oculus a lot. But that's like it's very The Shining so much. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. In
Yeah.
Oculus, we've got a character that just writes a name over and over again. And in this one, the equivalent of that is what the mom does with the map, putting
Yeah.
her blueprint
Forever
of their
home.
dream home, their
Yeah.
forever home in the blueprint, which I thought was really cool. The other thing that we had in here, I just wrote. Oh no, I wanted to ask you. So what do you interpret like the black mold? Because it's in the red room. Do you think of it as like the representation of like the evilness of the house? Like, what do you mean by that?
I think it's that borderline of an actual real thing that's hazardous to your health and magic slash evil.
Right.
So like it is actually black mold, but it kind of behaves in a unnatural way. What's the word I'm looking for here? Maybe
Supernatural.
supernatural way. Thank you.
No, that's cool. I love the way it's like depicted too. It looks so goddamn nasty. Like when
Yeah.
where they're all hanging out in the red room. We gotta save Luke. I'm like, what'd you get the fuck out of that room first?
Stop touching the walls.
Yeah, it looks so disgusting. So yeah, they're a little bit too comfortable just hanging out in that
Mhm.
black mold room at one point.
Yeah.
Luke seeing Nell at the grave. I think he sees his mom too.
Yeah,
That was a
the
dope
mom's
ass
like in
moment.
the grave trying to pull him in.
Yeah. And then at the very end, where Hugh's still being interrogated, he's like, we need to know more about that night. And that's we get like the cliffhanger ending of Hugh running in slow motion into the red room,
The
which
door's
obviously
open.
we learn a lot about
Yeah.
what goes in that one. The other thing I wanted to point out, there's so many monologues. Did you happen to key after we brought it up last week? Did you key in on any of these monologues throughout these 5 episodes and just kind of
No, not
notice
really.
more and more like how fucking many of them there are? There's so many, just like long monologues to varying degrees of how fucking well done they are. I guess I'll say.
Yeah, I definitely focus. I know like there's the Kate Siegel one of like when she gets out of the
Yeah,
car, which is
right.
like one of the best of the show.
I agree.
But
Well, this one,
yeah.
Mr. Dudley's that he does down in the
Oh
basement.
my god, that's another one. Yeah, that one stuck with me. And
That one
like
was
just a
great.
slow zoom in, that's a good one. And
Hmm.
then Mrs. Dudley gets one, either the same episode or the next episode.
She gets one in episode, I think it's episode 9, and we'll get to that when we get to
Yeah.
that. But that's to me where I started to be like, okay, you're fucking killing me because they start to stack them one after
Yeah.
another. And my issue with it, I love the Mr. Dudley one. I think it's great. I think he's maybe one of the best actors in the series, actually, and he pops up in everything. He's in the new
Mhm.
Halloween movies. I've seen him in a lot of shit since this.
He had
But
a bigger role in Fall of House of Usher.
oh, okay, cool. That's good to know.
Big, or equal size to this, I guess, equal size role.
What I was gonna say is like a lot of them, especially when they're doing the monologues, they all talk in the same voice,
Yeah.
and they'll repeat words. But like I heard a banging at the door, and it was banging loud, banging harder than I'd ever heard a bang. And it's like everybody does that, and it's so like if someone was to write like a novel.
Yeah.
That's why I said it last time. It's like ripped right out of a Stephen King novel.
Yeah,
It's a little
or
too.
Edgar
They
Allan
speak too
Poe.
perfect. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like too perfect. They know they're way too good at giving speeches. Like everybody, it's like they went to the
Everyone's
same speech
very
class.
eloquent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A little too much so. All right, so where do you grade this one, my brother? Episode 7, Eulogy.
I gave this one a 4, which I feel like is a little harsh, but just yeah, following 6 is tough to do.
Right.
And this one seemed more like a vehicle just to move on to
Mm-hmm.
the final 3 episodes. Yeah, the
Well,
final
well,
3
this is
episodes.
this is kind of what I'm saying. I gave it a 4.25 because I agree with you. It's almost like a filler episode, and I feel like the next one is almost like a filler episode, and I like it even better. I
No,
think so. There's no
yeah, we'll talk about the next one.
right.
But
I mean, for me on this one, there's nothing like bad about it. It's actually really good. It's just not that eventful. It
yeah,
doesn't do too much, but I enjoyed the shit out of it. I think it was
it's
a really
mostly
good
just
episode.
like the Dudley speech, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bit where the dad sticks his hand in the fan was really
Right.
good.
Oh,
It's
and they
just
discover the skeleton.
they have a way of like having these episodes that aren't that eventful or don't do much, but it's just I was so engaged in the story.
Yeah.
Like I wrote down 4.25 to 4.5, but I knew it wasn't that great of an episode. But I don't know.
I think it's
It's
just because
really good.
it's surrounded by really good episodes,
Hmm.
and so it's just like in contrast makes it seem a little
Totally.
less impressive. But there's one moment I wanted to call out, which I can't remember if it's this episode or the next one,
Hmm.
but like it's when the mom is like really close to her breakdown, and like she's in the kitchen with two of the kids. I think one is Shirley, the other is Nell, maybe. And they're just like the kids are arguing, and then the mom's just like, yeah, sure, whatever, and just like totally dismisses
Yeah.
their feelings. But in the background behind the glass door is like this really spooky, like shadowy skeleton person, just like barely noticeable.
Hmm.
And it's just like the camera goes like back and forth, and like you see it stays for a while until the camera cuts. And it's just like something new I noticed in my third time watching.
No shit. Yeah, I definitely did not notice
Yeah.
that. There's another moment like that, I think, in the previous episode where I think it's like the dad is the one closest to Nell's casket and the whole family's in the background. But if you're not really like scanning too closely, it's like, oh shit, so is Nell. Nell's
Yeah.
sitting there like,
They space them like perfectly, so Nell is like
mm,
right in the gap. Yeah.
yeah, it's cool. I mean, there's so much of that in this series in
Yeah,
general.
they don't focus on it. It's like
Right.
the longer you look at it, then you'll notice.
That's to me, I've said it before. That's like some of the scariest stuff is
Mhm.
when you're like searching around and they really like they get you locked in. They're manipulating you into looking harder than you normally would. It's just like there's this great jump scare in Sinister, this movie with Ethan Hawke. Anyway, he's on the computer and he's listening. He's listening. He's turning it up. So you start listening more and more. Then they hit you with a big jump scare. It's similar to that, but like a visual
Yeah.
version of it. All right. So you gave it a 4. I gave it a 4.25. Not a great episode, but a really fucking good episode, in my opinion. The
Mhm.
next one, episode 8, Witness Marks. And in this one, in the previous episode, we saw Luke look down. Present day Luke looks down at his sister's purse, and then the next thing you know, he's gone. So we're assuming he stole the credit card, which he did. He stole the credit card. He stole Theo's car, and we don't know what he's doing. They're worried whether or not he's going to commit suicide is the main thing that they're bringing up. That, and of course, going to get some drugs is the first thing that they bring up. But what he's really doing is he's going to Hill House. So what we have, a lot of what this episode is dealing with is Steve and the dad in the car going to Hill House, and the girls are supposed to stay. The dad has explained a lot about how Hill House is the most dangerous place that anyone in this family could ever go to. He's pretty much trying to convince Steve that everything is real, more or less. And then behind them, we have Theo and Shirley. They say, fuck it. They get in a car and they're following them and they're going to Hill House too. And it's really just like arguments going back and forth between those two. And then I'm trying to think what happens in the past
I
in
don't
this
think we
one.
see the past very much in that one.
Oh, because okay, that's how it works then. Because the next episode is all past,
Yeah,
so this one
episode
is
9 is
all
all
present.
past, 10 is all present.
Okay, or 8 and 9,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. And then the other thing that we get, just because I only know it because I have it written down in my notes, is Poppy Hill. So we learn about Poppy in this one in the present day.
Oh, no, then we must have more Olivia stuff in the past
Hmm.
because we learn
Any-
about Poppy Hill that way.
I'll just say I don't like Poppy Hill. I don't fucking like this lady and how much she shows up. I do not like when she gives her big monologues. There's something about her, like they, especially we can get to it more in the next episode, but that's when they really make her like a focal point.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. It's like, why did you bring in this character? It's weird because the mom has really been in the distance too. And then Poppy Hill and her kind of like lead that episode, but we're not on that one. So, about what did you think of episode 8, the witness marks? Where the other thing that we get is we learned that Steve, he wrote this shit in his book. He's like, I've never seen a ghost, but his dad read the book. He's like, bro, you wrote about a bunch of ghosts in your book that you didn't realize you were writing about ghosts, which I thought was a really, really cool moment and reveal. But what'd you think of this one, dude?
I like this episode. Really enjoyed like the car conversations. I
Me
think like
too.
there's a
A
lot
lot.
of dialogue moving there, especially between Shirley and Theo. That fucking jump scare. Like I knew it was
Yes.
coming and it still gets you every time.
I did.
And
Totally
then
forgot it was coming.
boom, we go right into that. Theo almost was a one shot. I think they cut back to Shirley a couple of times, but that amazing speech by Kate Siegel about like feeling nothing after touching Nell's body. And then that's why she was drinking so much the night before the funeral, because
Yeah.
she had this emptiness in her that she was trying to fill, and it did nothing. And then when the power went out, she like truly got lost in the darkness, completely went numb and thought that was death. And that's when she found Kevin, and he was like a light. And just, I think just touching his face, putting her hands on his face was enough to bring her back.
Right. So
And
thank
that's
God I
when
did, though.
yeah.
Thank God I did. Which it was great. I'm kind of making fun of it because she does the same shit in that, where she still talks in that same voice. But
It's very theatrical.
yeah, and my thought at the time was, well, fuck, if you've got if there has to be an excuse for making out with your sister's husband, that's a pretty good one. She
Yeah.
she
Like
really sold that.
I felt like I was dying.
Yeah, I felt my sister's empty soul, basically, which is another great moment from before when this is where we get the reveal of what she felt when she touched Theo,
Mm-hmm.
which I think I remember the time being a little bit disappointed. You're thinking it's going to be something crazy and like, super horrific, but really dwelling on it, it's like, yeah, no, she just felt like the even sadder possibility that there's just nothing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You're just feeling nothing. Um, oh, well, what did I just want to say? That jump scare was so goddamn good.
So
It's just
good.
like it's one of the moments of the series for me. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. Steve is a dick. So that's one of the big things that we find out about him in this episode is that he told his wife, or he didn't tell his wife about his vasectomy that he got from
Yeah.
before they met. He's convinced, rightfully so, from his perspective, that his whole family's crazy. The Cranes have dirty blood, more or less. So I thought, like, oh my god, what a piece of shit. They're going to fertility clinics, which is how the episode opens up. It's like, I don't know. It was a bad look on him. On
Total
him.
dick. Total dick. Yeah, not much of an excuse. I almost said like, well, he grew up in a tough childhood, but still total dick.
Oh, this is actually what I wanted to do. I wanted to highlight this comment. Have you guys watched Midnight Mass? Mr. Dudley was amazing in that one and been in several high-end movies since then. That's
I
from Bear
loved
Duck
Midnight Mass
Madre.
so much. I forgot Mr. Dudley's in it. I'm blanking on who he is.
He that I've said it before, I'll say it again. That I plan on, if we can work it out, that will be coming some Sunday in January during Fang Fest, where we're doing a month worth of vampire talk. Hopefully, Peter and I will be getting together and talking Midnight Mass in January. And then Bear continues, after all the background ghosts in this series, I continue looking for them in every Mike Flanagan creation. Hell yeah. And then shout out to the director for torturing his wife, Theodora Crane, in every series, which I love. He's the drunk guy in Midnight
Oh
Mass.
yeah, yeah. He lives in the RV.
He
I
looks
remember now.
like he looks like he'd play a good drunk guy.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. Bum bum bum. Yeah, this is one. You tell me, what was your rating for this one? Your overall thoughts, bro?
Which one are we talking about?
8 witness marks.
8. I gave this one a 4.5. Yeah, like I said, the car conversations were great for me.
Dude, the stuff with Steve and his dad, the dad giving marital advice. I can't remember the line. Oh, the kite and the thread or something like that.
Yeah, it's
So good.
beautiful.
I
Yeah.
thought that was really, really
See,
good.
that's when like you got to picture the young when he's talking about that, you got to picture
Mhm.
the younger one, because like it's weird personally to picture the older guy and present day Olivia,
Right.
Carla Gugino like together.
Which
Like,
they
just like,
do mix them together at points
yeah,
later
but
on, which
not
is
that
kind of
much.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see them together, which does tie it in and make it count. But that's what I'm saying, man. I think I don't know. I don't know if I could see Henry Thomas given that speech the way that he does. If they just kind of aged him up and grayed his hair up, because he already has like really gnarly crow's feet for his age. Like he doesn't look like a super young guy. They could have made him look 65, I think, but I don't
Yeah.
know if he could have delivered, if he could have pulled that off.
Yeah, and I guess it's too big of a role because like Flanagan does use prosthetics to make other people look old at the very end of this show, and he does
Mm-hmm.
it in Midnight Mass too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Was he the guy that did it in Harry Potter? Because it did not go well in Harry Potter. I'm right there with you, dude. I gave it a 4.5, and this is, I mean, even more so than the last one. It's so uneventful. Not much happens. It's not like, oh wow, there's not all these crazy moments other than the jump scare with Nell.
Yeah.
But it's, dude, those conversations, the way that the pacing of the episode. I was just so into it from start to finish. Fire episode, and I've got like, normally when I'm making my notes, I'll have like 20, 25 notes. There's like 11 little notes that I had here as far as like shit going on in the plot. But still, I thought it was a fantastic
Yeah,
episode. So,
because it's mostly conversation. It
yeah,
was literally a transporting episode, getting them from
right,
just outside Boston to Hill House.
right. All right, so a 4.5 from both of us on that one. We'll go to episode 9. This is the episode that we get like the biggest reveal of the whole series. What happened in the Red Room, the tea party, the whole shebang bang. Screaming Mimi's is the name of it. And as we mentioned before, this one takes place entirely in the past. So I didn't even really write down like what happens here.
Mostly like from Olivia's point of view, and we see like
Right.
older episodes from her point of view, like
Right.
when she gets the vanity table from Steve and
The screwdriver to
the
Hugh's
screwdriver.
throat,
Yep.
which was cool. We didn't mention that back in episode 8, but that was cool. He just wakes up and she's on. Those are some of my favorite moments of the series, and you're right. I think a lot of them do happen in this episode where we're seeing something from a different perspective, and then we realize why something happened later on. Like especially when Hugh's running out of the house with Steve, and he's like, "Close your eyes," and we
Yeah.
see that Olivia was in the room, like next door or whatever.
And
All
he
those
just didn't want
moments
to
are
see
awesome.
he didn't want him to see his mom like that.
Right, right. So damn cool. But what I think wasn't fucking cool, what I didn't love about this one, I really do feel like it just started to be like monologue after monologue after monologue. I wrote at one point, I said, Poppy's monologue is the low point for the show. Thumbs down emoji. I was just like, oh my God, lady. I couldn't stand her accent or anything about her. I just didn't like how important she felt. And it's like, I had to Google, like, who the fuck is she? What is her story? And I already forget it. I already don't care. Like, it wasn't important enough for her to play the role that she played. I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but they had great moments. This episode has a great ending with the Red Room stuff, but this is probably my least favorite episode.
So I think because I forgot about Poppy entirely, like I
Mm-hmm.
was just on board revisiting it. But you're right, she does get a lot of monologues. At first, I was really into her monologues because she did have good delivery, but then she keeps going on and on. But I think her deal was that she lost 2 kids in this house.
Yeah, I think so.
One because the crib was black molded, I think.
Mm.
I think.
Yeah, I
And
don't
the
see, that's
other
the
I
thing. I
can't
forget all this.
yeah, I can't remember what the other was. And basically she's the one who drops the idea in Olivia's head that like the world outside is scary and will kill your kids. So
Right.
you should kill your kids now so the world doesn't kill them.
Right. Which is more or less the plot of this whole thing and the theme of
Yeah.
this whole entire thing. It's all about, which I'll tell you, this does hit a little bit different now that I have a daughter. I didn't when I first saw this. So it is like, don't get me wrong, that stuff does hit where you're like, yeah, you're gonna have to let go one day. It's what the whole thing is about, is letting go of your children. Don't try to protect them. After a certain age, you got to let them grow up and live on their own. But but I don't know. I don't know. There's just something about it where I was like, I was more frustrated in this one than I was in most of the other episodes.
Yeah,
Try to
they had to find the jump point of like, okay, why does Olivia try to kill the kids?
right.
And they took a leap and maybe it didn't land as well as they wanted it to.
Right. I mean, I can get behind like her reasoning and all that. It's just, I don't know. I just got bored by certain parts and frustrated with the episode. The other thing, I don't know if have you ever happened to read the book Carrie by any chance?
I have not.
In the book Carrie, there's a scene, there's this whole bit where Carrie like calls to the sun, or rocks start falling out of the sky only on Carrie White's house. And the mom tells this whole story, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the story of Carrie. Like, that's the story, is like, oh, the rocks fell and they only fell on my house. I was like, oh, that's kind of, I thought it was kind of cool, but I thought it was
Yeah,
kind of
nice
funny at the
little
same time.
homage.
Right. I want to see. So the red room reveal, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is where we learn everything that happened in the red room. Where that's the whole point. She knows that if you die in this house, you'll live forever as a ghost. So her plan is to kill her youngest kids, because the way she sees it is like Shirley and Steve, and I think even Theo. Like at one point, she sees Shirley and she says, uh, kids need their mothers and then they don't, and then she goes off to kill the other kids and she's going to leave them alive. But
Yeah,
I mean,
because Theo, Shirley, and Steve are too old.
right, incredible. Just what do you think of just the reveal of all that and like the events, what happens in the red room with the tea party?
I thought the reveal was great. I also see it as like the house basically telling Olivia that of like, oh yeah, like feed your kids to me so they'll live forever as ghosts. And oh, I just happen to get a free meal out of it. That's a
Right,
nice little side effect.
right. No, I agree. The bits with Abigail, like when she
Okay.
drinks the poison and actually
Oh.
starts choking, like, oh my god.
I was thinking today of like was Olivia just totally unhinged that she didn't see Abigail like take a sip early, because I think she wanted all of them. She wanted to do a communal suicide at the same time.
Right, as one does.
Yeah, and this little twerp drank her tea too early and ruined it.
Well, I can see she was pretty unhinged. To answer the question, yes, she was entirely unhinged at that moment
Also,
that she
yeah,
was poisoning her kids.
we also get the Abigail reveal this episode.
Yeah, what do you think about that? So, like, she wasn't a ghost. Ever
No,
like this,
she was
at
Abigail Dudley.
at one point that night in that episode, the mom comes in the twins' bedroom and she sees Abigail. Goes, oh, you must be Abigail. And then Luke says, see, I told you she was real. It made me think that Nell couldn't see her, or was Nell just thinking, like, oh, we can both see this ghost? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like kids can see ghosts. If a parent confirms this ghost is real, then it's not a ghost. It's. I think that's what it was. It was
Okay.
like Luke being like, "See, Nell, mom can see her too. She's not just a ghost, or she's not a ghost."
Right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's
I
got to
also
be
want
what it
to.
was. Because it's
I
the only
also
thing that
want to
makes sense.
blame. I want to blame the Dudleys for this, because they never once called their daughter by name when
Right.
talking about her, and they talk about
Yeah,
her a lot.
that's a
They
good
never
point.
once say Abigail, and then they'll be like, "Oh, you know, my son Luke has an imaginary friend named Abigail that he plays with in
That's
the
funny.
woods."
I honestly, I think I misremembered, or maybe not misremembered. I don't know if I fully understood it the first time, or I don't know. I guess I
Yeah,
did
it's
because
because they introduce Abigail early on, like first or second episode, and
Mhm.
you even see her like from a distance, and they don't bring her up that often again until this episode, the episode before.
Right, which makes sense. Let me see what my man says down there. Bear Duck Madre says, "What do you call the broke neck bitch?" Oh, I don't know if I want to read your shit anymore. No, I'm just joking. Poppy was definitely the scariest part of the series. That breath must have been terrible. I agree, but I don't think she was scary to me for whatever reason. I think I
She
was
got
annoyed by
a
the accent and shit.
she got some good jump scares when she was all like zombied and blue,
Right. And she looked
but
cool. Everybody
yeah.
looks the ghosts look great. The way their skin's like peeling off and their eyes are glowing. I think she had the glowing eyes in that. All right. All right. Read this one more comment, then we'll rate this bad boy. I didn't believe Abigail was real, then immediately lost her. Definitely the Dudleys' fault and the real price of keeping things from your kids. Yeah. I mean, it really does. Like now that you pointed out that they bring up this daughter the whole time and never mentioned her by name, it is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I still think it works pretty good. It's not like a ding, I would say. But where are you at, brother? What would your rating be for
I
episode
believe I
9?
gave this one a 5. Yeah, I really like this
Damn.
one.
Made me want to rewatch it again because I might have been in a
Even with
fucking mood.
even with all the Poppy stuff, it still was super intense the entire time. And like, yeah, sure, it dipped a little bit with the Poppy monologues, but that was in like the middle
It,
of like
here's
retelling the opening scene of the last night.
Right. Here's what it was. It was the mom's monologue about the falling rocks, and then it was Mrs. Dudley's monologue to the mom, and then it was Poppy's monologue, and I was monologued the fuck out by halfway through that I just, I'm rolling my eyes and I'm like, this sucks. I
Yeah.
was like annoyed by it. And I don't know, some of
I
them
got
even like
distracted by them like going back to earlier episodes and like showing you the alternate takes of like what really happened.
Right. Which
That
was
was like,
great.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
paid off for me.
I could have been in a stinker of a mood, but I love that you gave it a 5 because it really does make me want to revisit it. I gave it a 3.75, which is
Whoa.
I think the only thing that I've rated under a 4 this whole
Yeah.
time. Even though the end was so good, I think the
All that pop,
important
you got poppied out.
I got poppied out, man. I'm way over poppy. Hold on. What am I trying to do? I'm looking at one of my notes and trying to figure out what the hell it means. I guess this is a note for the next fucking episode. That's why. All right.
There you go.
So a 5 from you. Whoa, 5 from you, a 3.75 from me on that one. Read this comment real quick. Oh no, we already did that. All right. So the final episode, I think this is fire. I really do think that they did nail the ending here, where we have Luke I think in the end of the last episode, we see Luke at Hill House. He's got a bunch of gas, pours it all over the place, lights a match, and it goes out right away. And I'm like, I couldn't remember how this went down. In my mind, I'm like, they kill Luke, and I don't like it. That's like what I remember.
Yeah, they killed him off screen.
But they don't. What I thought it was is like, oh, the house just made him think that it wasn't on fire, and he lit that gas and it didn't go out. He's just standing there burning to death. That's what I thought that they were gonna do, which kind of would have been cool.
Yeah.
But what happens in this one is Luke goes to the red room. He ends up getting in there. The whole family finds him in there, and he's drank the poison that the mom gave Abigail and was going to give Luke and Nell that night. And he's lying there dying on the floor. There's a bunch of different visions that they have, and they all show up at the house. I don't know, other than that, what we need to know before diving into this one, but this is the finale. The thing I was going to point out, they start out the episode, which I loved, and it completely tricked me. They're acting like this is in the past, like this is after the events, and now we're from Steve's perspective, and he's writing the story of that night. And it's right off the bat, they're like, you got to write the story of how your dad and your brother died. I'm like, oh, they did die. I'm like, sons of bitches. But I thought the reveal then that he was still in the red room was amazing. I thought that was so good. But what did you think of it, dude? The episode as a whole.
Same here, because like I believed it. I fell for it even this time around too. I was like, oh wow, yeah, they I guess we are gonna come back. It's really funny how much I forgot.
Well, there's a lot. And that's how I feel even trying to do the synopsis for these. I feel like I'm being a little bit sloppy, but there's a lot. There's a lot to remember in 10 episodes.
Yeah. Which it's almost like they could have done more episodes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot they crammed in 10 episodes. But the reveal was great of him just like slowly being like, I can't remember like certain parts. And then the episode kind of turns into like everyone gets their own little dream nightmare scenario to overcome, or not to overcome, but to have Nellie pull them out of.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a Freddy Krueger Pennywise type of thing where they're having all these visions of something that they've done in the past, like Shirley cheating on her husband, and
that finally got paid off.
Yeah,
teasing the guy, cheersing her for like 7 episodes.
What'd you think of that? I think it was good. I enjoyed it, but I could see that being a bit of a letdown. That it's just you keep seeing this guy, and it's like, oh, it's just some guy that she banged. But I don't know. I guess it's just not that big of an eventful thing, but it is emotionally impactful.
I think it is pretty big because like Shirley is I think the only flaw they showed is just like she's so fucking stubborn. Like her husband hid money from her to save their business that she kept like selflessly sacrificing money to do the right thing. And she's not forgiving him. But then you find out, oh, it's because she cheated on him. And I don't know. She's like, she can't even forgive herself. So she can't forgive her husband or her sister for lying to her too.
Right. The bit where she sits down, and that's the thing about like there's layers of this, or there's aspects of all this that is like really cheesy, but they nail it. Like, you know what I mean? When she's sitting there like, I'm gonna need you to hold my hand as I fall, and it's like you could think like, oh, this is corny, but at the same time, like if you're bought into it, it really is like emotionally impactful.
Yeah, Kevin's a sweetheart. You know.
I wonder if he shows up in any other shit done by Mike Flanagan. You know what I thought was funny? It's like I guess it's not funny, but I see what they did there. They're like, all right, how do we get some diversity into this all white family? And they have everybody. Nell marries a black dude, Shirley marries a Mexican dude, and Theo's gay. It's like done, check,
and yeah,
Asian chick.
with an Asian chick, yeah.
It's like done. We're in. All right, we're fine. I don't know. You want to just rate this thing, and I'm sure some other fun bits will pop up. The stuff with
Sure.
the dad sacrificing himself. He
Yeah,
basically
didn't
like
see that coming.
doesn't take his heart medication, and it takes him like 30 seconds to die, and it kills him. Is that the way you took it, or do you think he took it and like overdosed on those pills?
I think it's he took it in overdose on those
Oh,
pills.
okay,
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
Yeah. And
I
then who
just
knows how long they were sitting in the red room for.
right. That's a
'Cause
good point too.
I assume that takes a little bit for them to kick in.
Right, that's a good point. All right, what's your rating for this one, bro?
This one I gave a 4.75.
Bam! I gave it a 5. I gave it a 5. I was really just kind of wrapped up in the thing the whole time and just enjoyed it. And especially because I was remembering that I'm like, oh, the series kind of let me down. It was way better than I expected. I was like, I think like you said last week, I think they stuck the landing. I think they kind of nailed it at the end. They fumbled a little bit for me in episode 9, not for you, clearly, which is cool. If I hit this wire a certain way, all of a sudden I can't hear anything. But we're good. I thought I lost everything for a second.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like if there are any fumbles, it was in episode 10, and episode 9 kept my focus the entire time, even through the poppy speeches, as we've already gone over. Right. The fumbles for episode 10, I think what got me was just like the exposition of like what the house is.
I agree. It was a
little
too much.
Little too on the nose. You could have kept it a little bit more ambiguous instead of been like, this room is the heart or the stomach.
The stomach, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but I liked that. I like them calling it the stomach.
The concept. Yeah, but they've been so coy about like things being like maybe supernatural, maybe real. And this was like a very deliberate like metaphor that didn't leave you second guessing.
That's a good point, because it was one of the things I appreciated about all those like 4, 5, 6 episodes where there was so much of it that you could like, oh, is this trauma, or is it mental health, or is it supernatural, I guess I should say. And they really do spell it out, even with the theme. Like they didn't have to tell us so much about that. The whole theme was letting your kids grow up.
Yeah, and even like Mr. Dudley says it flat out himself of like, we held on to her so much and we never let her go outside to the outside world, and she died anyway.
Right. I mean, that's kind of what you get in mainstream TV and movies and shit like that. So I won't it doesn't bother me too much, but it was the same thing. I thought the same shit. It's like they don't need to spell it out that much. But that's a nitpick for me.
Yeah, same here.
But
still a very good episode.
So I think that will do it, man. You gave that one a 4.75. I gave it a 5. So I'll do a quick recap. I gave number 6, I gave it a 5. I gave number 7 a 4.25, a 4.5 for number 8, a 3.75 for 9, and a 5 for the last one. You want to do a recap? You got that on you?
Yeah, I did a 5 for episode 6, 4 for episode 7, 4.5 for episode 8, 5 for episode 9, and a 4.75 for 10.
I love that, dude. I mean, like I say, sometimes it's like it's your mood. For me specifically, you know what? Something I'm hesitant to even fucking say it, because it's like, what's it really matter? But like, sometimes I'm trying to watch this with my kid. I just got to squeeze these in. Which I should say, I appreciate you, Peter. You watched 10 hours worth of television to do these 2 shows in the past couple of weeks, so that does not go unnoticed. But shit'll come up and I'm like hoping that she's not looking. I'm hoping she's playing on the floor or whatever, but sometimes she's looking and I'm doing this, or I'm trying to like act like it's not scary, which is making it less scary for me and clearly affecting my viewing.
Right.
Maybe there's some of those scarier moments in episode 9.
You would think you would love the monologues then. Nothing scary is happening then.
Exactly. I'm like, oh God, she's watching terrible writing. This is a horror show. I don't know, man. Some of them, like I said, it's like it's the same voice thing. That's what gets to me. You can't have everybody talking in the same goddamn voice.
Yeah.
But all right, do
Be
you
interesting
have?
to see if how Flanagan uses monologues going forward, how often he
Me
does them.
too. I'm very interested to see it here. Okay, here's something I wanted to point out because at one point, hopefully, you and I can get together sometime in the not too distant future and do the Haunting of Bly Manor,
Yes.
which is it's a 9 episode. I believe
Oh, happy days.
that it's 9 episodes. But here's the interesting thing: Haunting a Hill House, 10 episodes, 10 episodes directed by Mike Flanagan, 4 episodes written by him, which is already interesting. But that's pretty normal. Usually, there's different people writing and directing. The Haunting of Bly Manor, 1 episode directed by Mike Flanagan, 1 episode written by Mike Flanagan.
Interesting.
Interesting. Now you see this a lot where somebody will be the showrunner and they might
Yeah.
not direct or write a single episode, but they're I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like George Lucas and Star Wars. He didn't direct like almost any of them fucking things, but everybody knows those are George Lucas movies.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, like, I don't know, how does that work for TV? I still feel like they are Mike Flanagan shows, and that's why he's getting the credit, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure he's definitely a showrunner, so he still has like most creative control over these
Right.
episodes, and like he's the one deciding what directors to bring in and
Right.
who's going to write the episodes. But
Right. And I
overall
think
plot is him.
in that situation, you're given a lot of guidance to the directors, I would assume. I know I've heard people talk about, like, I'm just thinking of Kevin Smith directing some episodes of The Flash. He's like, when I went in there, I'm just trying to get the fuck out of everybody's way and let them do it. So it's always interesting to me, like, what directors do on TV shows, because everyone else is the mainstay. The casts are there, the showrunner, all these other people. A lot of times the directors are the ones just popping in for an episode and popping out. So it's not like they're coming in and calling all the shots. And you're right. I think that's Mike Flanagan is the main, probably the main creative driving voice in Bly
Yeah,
Manor as well. It's got to be.
it's interesting why they decided for him to take a step back when it comes to production.
Yeah. Or did he decide to? It could very well be he's like, I was doing too much. I was stretching myself too thin. I'll be better in this role, which is, I
Yeah,
assume, what people do. There's a reason why most people don't direct. Like, I'd be curious to know,
but
like, did J.J. Abrams, what did he direct for those Lost episodes? Like, I don't know. I'm really curious.
yeah,
Do you want to give an overall rating for the series, brother?
I give this thing a 9 out of 10. Can I
Nine out
do
of
that? Is
10.
that a good rating to do, or do you want me to do out of 5?
If you give it a 9 out of 10, I'm just going to convert it to a 4.5 out of 5 for you.
I can't do
I,
math.
I mean, shit, man. I'm tempted to give the thing, because when you're comparing it to what it is, if I'm going to compare it to other miniseries, it's like the best one I've ever seen. But I haven't seen Midnight Mass. I haven't seen Fall of the House of Usher. I don't watch a lot of horror TV, so maybe I don't know. But I'll give it a 4.75, just to get a little bit closer to that 5. It's amazing. I really do. Like, for any of the flaws that it has, it's still incredible, man. Like,
Yeah,
when you
totally agree.
look at, like, I was gonna say this earlier, we're talking about like how many episodes you have, the difference between like an 8 episode MCU TV show and like a 24 episode Flash TV show. It's
This
like,
is so much more character
yeah,
in
there's
those.
just so much. You're there. You got to stretch things out so much more. But like, this isn't fully stretched out into 24 episodes. But you're gonna have cheesier, like cornier, cheesier moments in a 10 episode thing that's meant for mainstream audiences, rather than some, I don't know, some kind of different thing that I would be
Yeah, I see
comparing it
what you
to.
mean. Yeah,
My man says we should definitely do the rest of the Flanagan series. I would like
definitely.
to. You know, my only thing is, I really want to do Midnight Mass with you in January. I feel like we need to squeeze in Bly Manor before that, because I want to keep these
Yeah,
things in order.
yeah.
You know what
After
I mean?
watching Hill House again, I'm like, okay, I've avoided Bly Manor enough times.
Me too.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard other people's reviews of it, so that is making me a little hesitant. But I think I got to rip the Band-Aid.
Well, I've heard people. I guess I've said this before on these episodes. I've heard some people say it's their favorite. I've heard more people say that it's not as good, but still really good. That's like the most common thing that I've heard. But certain people say like, oh, I like Bly Manor a lot better. So it's like, who
Interesting.
knows? Maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'll be one of those people. I hope I am. And I've heard nothing but good shit about Fall of the House of Usher and Midnight Mass.
All
You
right.
saw Fall of the House of Usher, right?
I did. Yep.
Okay. All right, my man. What do you give it, Bear Duck Madre? You got a rating for me, my man? Easy Dick. He gives it a 4.5 overall for sure. So effective, emotional, and not overly reliant on horror tropes. I agree, my brother. I agree. Yeah, it's just fucking cool. It's just like a really good, like emotional, well acted, well written for the most part series. Midnight Mass has a lot of the same characters, so it's good to watch before Bly Manor. Okay, that's worth knowing. 9 out of 5 for Bear Duck Madre
Nine
right
out of
there.
10.
9 out of 10. That's what I meant. Thank you for keeping me in line. All right. So, you know what? I'm just going to read off real quick because I did slap together my favorite moments. I almost forgot to do it, and Peter did forget to do it. So I'm going to give you my list, and
All right.
maybe you can say where you might change some things, and then we're going to wrap this bad boy up. A quick reminder, though, before I do that, dun, 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 this Thursday, join us 8 o'clock Central Time for Stir of Echoes. This one was picked by the chat at the end of the last episode. For Oculus, this one was picked by Inja the Benja. So looking forward to checking that out. Stir of Echoes streaming like everywhere. So if you're looking for it, you'll be able to find it for free, no problemo. But I'll run through my list really quick. I'll do it like this. Number 1, Bent Neck Lady. The reveal that one of the best moments in television history blows my mind, gives me fucking goosebumps every time I've seen it, which is twice now. I had Nell's scream in the car as
Yeah.
like one of like the scariest moments, which was so badass. As far as something that was just a cool reveal, I had in my top moments because they weren't all like the scariest moments. Is the reveal of what the Red Room, of the times that we've seen the Red Room throughout the series prior, I thought was just really cool. It was a different room. It was almost like what's that room in Harry Potter? Do you remember what they call it? Where it's whatever you
The vanishing room?
that
No.
doesn't sound right. The room of requirements or
The room
something.
of requirements sounds right. Yeah.
It's not though.
Damn it. My Harry
Anyway,
Potter skills are not strong.
I know, me neither. It's whatever you need it to be is what it is. So it served all these different purposes for the kids. But then when they reveal it and they're flashing from like scene to scene, and you see it's got that thin window that's in the Red Room for each one. It's like, oh, we've been in there many times throughout the series. I thought that was cool. I was gonna ask you, do you remember off the top of your head, do we ever see the dad in that room? It
No.
showed like it was right. Okay. I thought that
Yeah.
was kind of interesting.
Even the mom being in there is a big deal. It shows how like susceptible she is to like the house's magic.
Right.
But like every time someone references a room, so whoever else is in the scene has to respond with what room are you talking about? Every single time.
Really?
Yeah, because like the first use was like it was Luke's treehouse, and Steve's like, he's like, oh, he'll probably be in the treehouse. Like Dad's probably gonna regret building him that thing, and the mom's like, you're so silly.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah,
then
that's cool.
yeah,
That was one of the big ones too. It's just the fact that there is no treehouse. I was like,
yeah,
what? I thought that was so cool.
yeah. Then you think you're like, when would he have time to build a huge
Yeah.
treehouse like that? I think
I
it was
like his
epic.
explanation. He's like, we were gonna be there for 8 weeks, Steve. I didn't build you a fucking treehouse. The at number 4, I had Nell's reunion with Arthur right before the butt neck lady reveal, where they have that they redo the reception at Hill
Yeah,
House. She's
yeah.
dancing around with her dead husband. Fucking amazing. When Theo touched Nell in the first place, I just thought like the possibilities of that was just such a cool moment. A cool way to use Theo's mutant abilities is by touching her dead sister. The floating man, some people call him the tall man, some people call him the bowler hat man. I'll call him the dude that floats. That was fucking cool. The bugs crawling out of the cat's mouth was
Ugh.
dope as hell. And because I've got 10 of these written down. Number 9, I had the first appearance of the bent neck lady. That first time that we see her over Nell's like shoulder in the opening scenes, or one of the first scenes of the whole series. And then the last one I had written here was the reveal that Luke wasn't on drugs, that he was feeling the effects of his twin's death.
Yeah.
The rigor mortis and all that was just such a great reveal. And just to think of what that must have felt like was so dope.
And to do that over multiple episodes, because you see Luke from the point of view of Steve after he broke into his apartment.
Right. So you've
So
got
good.
you've got it set in your head at that point already that he's on drugs. So
Yeah,
it
because
is,
you're
it is
only
a,
hearing other people react to be like, oh, he must be on drugs. Because like at this point, everyone in the family has completely lost faith in him. They are not a supportive family.
no. They're a bunch of dicks, and Steve might be the worst
Steve is
fucking
the dick
one.
of the dick. But in the end,
Mhm.
Steve and his estranged wife get back together, and she's pregnant in that little 2-year anniversary party for Luke.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And Kevin is there with Shirley.
My man says Bly Manor is about a dramatic family. Midnight Mass is about a town who has never heard of vampires. That's interesting. I'd never heard that. I just knew it was a vampire thing. I'm really curious. I'm dying to check all these out. We're gonna have to get into Bly Manor maybe sooner than later, Peter. We'll have to squeeze it in. I can't use you too much because hopefully we're gonna have it worked out. Peter will be joining me along with his partner in crime, Eric from Two Geeks Different Streets, for two of the biggest, baddest ass movies that we're doing during Horror Fest. Peter, for the first time in a few weeks, if we do it when we think we're going to do it in a few weeks on a Sunday, Peter's going to be seeing Evil Dead for the first time. Are you excited for this?
I am.
Don't
It's
fucking lie to
about
me,
time.
Peter. I'm dying for it, man, because it's like it's your buddy and my buddy Eric's. It's his favorite franchise, and it's everything that like we've watched together so far on this show has been very modern and very like, oh, Peter will like this. Let's find something that I know Peter will be into. This is something that I don't know if you will be, but I think you'll respect it. I don't know if you'll love it, but you're definitely going to be like, oh, I see why people love this.
I wouldn't call it an 80s kick, but I've been like wanting to get into an 80s kick, like rewatching The Thing recently.
Hell yeah.
Like with the new Alien coming out, I've been like, man, it's been so long since I watched. I don't even know if I've ever fully watched the first Alien. You know, like you kind of just catch it on TV and you watch it in parts.
Right.
And then yeah, I feel like Evil Dead would have been on my list too. So just having an excuse to watch it is exactly what I need.
Hell yeah, dude! I can't wait for it. And then hopefully we haven't nailed it down, but at one point in October we're going to be talking about Hereditary, which you've never seen and Eric has never seen. Nobody spoil it for him. So all right, we're going to wrap this bad boy up. Bear Duck Madre, I appreciate you being here, my brother. E from 9 Panel Grid, I appreciate you as always. Kenneth Bird, Rogue Collecting, and everybody else. I'm just going to pretend like there was way more people in here. All these people. Mike
Too many to
Flanagan was
name.
in here.
Yeah.
Like Stephen King. I appreciate you. So, all right. Well, we tried this at the end of the last show, and I loved the way it went. So let's try it again. Peter, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
The heart can't also be the stomach. It biologically doesn't make any sense.
That's ridiculous. How could it be? That's I could not have done any better than that. So I think we'll end it right there. I'll see you guys on Thursday for Stir of Echoes. See you.
That will be quite enough of that.